Hi, good evening. This is once again Teacher Rika, your math teacher. What we are going to talk about tonight is the synthetic division. It's about division of polynomials. Last time you used the long division method. This time, it's an alternative to long division. Now let's recall how do we divide the polynomials x squared minus 6x minus 27 to the divisor x minus 9. So here's our dividend and here's the divisor. First thing that we have to do is to divide the first term in the dividend to the first term in the divisor. X squared divided by x will give us x, and write the quotient on the top of the long division sign. The next, multiply this quotient x to the first term in the divisor. X times x will give us x squared. Write it here. And then x times negative 9 will give us negative 9x, write it under negative 6x. Then by subtraction, x squared minus x squared is 0, and negative 6x minus negative 9x is 3x. Then bring down negative 27. Next is divide this first term in the dividend to the first term in the divisor. 3x divided by x will give us 3, and write the quotient beside x. Afterwards, multiply 3 to the first term in the divisor. 3 times x will give us 3x. Write it here. And then 3 times negative 9 is negative 27. Then again, by subtraction, that will give us 0 as a remainder. So that's the quotient, x plus 3. How do we apply the synthetic division? Considering the divisor x minus 9 in here, equate it to 0. So our x is 9. That's what we call the synthetic divisor, 9. And taking into consideration the coefficients in the dividend. The coefficient here of the first term in the dividend is 1. So there's an invisible 1 there. The coefficient here is negative 6, and in here that's negative 27. So those are the numbers that we have to consider. So 9 in here came from the synthetic divisor. 1 in here is the coefficient of the first term, negative 6 is the coefficient of the second term, and negative 27 is the coefficient of the last term. But you have to make sure that the dividend is arranged from the term with the highest exponent to the least, and check if there are no missing terms. Then put a bar to indicate a sum later. First step is to bring down the first number. So bring down 1 there. And then multiply 1 by 9. 1 times 9 will give us 9 as a product. We write the product under the second number. Then by addition, negative 6 plus 9, that's 3. Multiply 3 by 9. 3 times 9 will give us 27. And by addition, that's 0. The last number indicates the remainder. If it's 0, then there's no remainder. And how do we write the quotient? The degree of the quotient, or the highest exponent of the quotient, is indicated by the difference of the degree in the dividend and the degree in the divisor. So the degree in the dividend is 2 minus the degree in the divisor 1. 2 minus 1 will give us 1. So that's why it's 1 there. And then the second number will be the next term, which is the constant. So as you check, we got the same answer by long division and by synthetic division. Another example, how do we divide x cubed minus x squared plus 2x plus 4 and x plus 1 by synthetic division? Again, the first polynomial is the dividend, the second is the divisor. Consider the divisor x plus 1, equate it to 0, and then get the value of the synthetic divisor. So if it's plus in here, the synthetic divisor becomes negative, and if it is minus in here, that becomes positive. So write it there in the box. And then where did we get 1? So that's the coefficient of the first term in the dividend. The coefficient in the second term, that's negative 1. The coefficient in the third term, that's 2. And then the last term, the constant 4. So you have to make sure they are arranged from greatest to least. And if there's no missing term, 3, 2, 1, 0. and then put a bar to indicate the sum later. First step is to bring down the first number, then multiply it by -1. So write it there, and then add. That will give us -2. Then repeat the process, multiply -2 times -1, that's 2, and then add. That will give us 4. Then multiply 4 to -1, that's -4, and then add, that is 0. That means there's no remainder. And how do we write the quotient? Again, subtract the degree of the dividend to the degree of the divisor. 3 minus 1, that will give us 2. That means the degree of the quotient is 2. And then the first coefficient is 1. There's 1 there. And then the second coefficient is -2. And then the constant 4. Okay, so we used x because that's the given variable. Another example, divide y to the fourth plus 3y cubed minus 2y squared plus 18 divided by y plus 3. Dividend and then the divisor, the second polynomial. Consider the divisor y plus 3 equated to 0 and then get the value of the synthetic divisor. So the synthetic divisor is -3. Our coefficients are 1, 3, -2, and 18. So we write it here. But take note, there's a missing term. The linear term is missing because 4, 3, 2, and there's no term having a 1 as an exponent. That's why we write 0 there. So that's what you have to do when there's a missing term. You put a 0, don't forget that. And then the constant. So we put a bar to indicate the sum later. First step, bring down the first number. Multiply that number by the synthetic divisor, -3. Write it under the next number, then add, that is 0. Then multiply it to -3. 0 times -3 will give us 0, and then add, that will give us -2. Multiply this again to -3. That will give us 6, and then add, that is 0. 0 plus 6 is 6. And then multiply 6 by -3, that will give us -18, then add, that's 0. Meaning there's no remainder. And how do we write the quotient? So the quotient, or the degree of the quotient, is the difference between the degree of the divisor of the dividend to the divisor. So that's 4, and then there's an invisible 1 there. 4 minus 1 is 3, that's why the degree of the quotient in here is 3. And then the coefficient is 1. That's y cubed. And then there's no quadratic term in here. There's no term having an exponent of 2. So we do not write it anymore there. Followed by the linear term, the coefficient is -2. That's why we write it here, -2y. And then the constant 6. So that's the answer. How about if there's a remainder? For example, like this, 2a to the fourth minus a cubed minus 5a squared plus 6a plus 5 divided by a minus 1, where the first polynomial is the dividend, the second polynomial is the divisor. So take into consideration the divisor. The value of the synthetic divisor is 1. So we write it inside the box, and our coefficients are 2, -1, -5, 6, and then 5. Put a bar to indicate the sum later. Bring down the first number, and then multiply 2 times 1. That's 2, write it there. Add, that will give us 1. Then multiply 1 times 1, that's 1. -5 plus 1 is -4. Multiply -4 by 1, that will give us -4. And then add, that will give us 2. 6 plus -4 is 2. Then multiply 2 to 1, that will give us 2. So 5 plus 2, that's 7. Meaning, there's a remainder of 7. And how do we write the answer, the final answer? So our first coefficient is 2. Where did we get this 3? We subtract the degree of the dividend to the degree of the divisor. 4 minus 1, that's 3. That's why the degree of the answer is 3. And then we have the coefficient of the quadratic term. That's why it's plus a squared. Then the coefficient of the linear term. So we have -4a there. Plus the constant 2. And how do we write the remainder? That's plus 7 over the divisor. So that's how you write the remainder. So here's the activity. If you would like to answer the following using the synthetic division, you can go with them. And that ends the lesson. I hope you have learned something, especially how we use the synthetic division as an alternative in dividing polynomials. I hope that you're following all of the videos that I have made because they are interconnected. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to get notified for the next videos. Thank you and see you for the next lesson.